Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Sri Lankan Olcott Schools alumni in the United Arab Emirates, I would warmly welcome you all to the inaugural Olcott Oration here in the UAE. Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Henry Steele Olcott lived from 2nd August 1832 to 17 February 1907. Was an American military officer, subsequently practicing as a journalist and lawyer. Colonel Olcott came to be inspired by accounts of the Panduravada led by Venerable Bhikkhupati Gunananda Thero and was distressed by the plight of Buddhists then in Sri Lanka in the face of over 3.5 centuries of domination by European colonial powers. Colonel Olcott was the first well-known American of European ancestry to make a formal conversion to Buddhism. Having arrived in Sri Lanka in 1880, Colonel Olcott had played a major role in revival of Buddhism in the country. He was instrumental in founding several Buddhist schools in Sri Lanka, namely Ananda, Dharmapala, Dharmaraja, Dharmashoka, Mahinda, Maliyadeva, Nalanda and Rahula colleges. And Olcott Schools alumni in the UAE is formed by the past pupils of these schools. Colonel Olcott also acted as an advisor to the committee appointed to design a Buddhist flag in 1885. The Buddhist flag designed with the assistance of Colonel Olcott was later adopted as a symbol by the World Fellowship of Buddhists and as a universal flag of all Buddhist traditions. Ladies and gentlemen, although Olcott Oration is an annual event in Sri Lanka organized by the All Old Boys Association of Ananda College, for the first time here in the UAE, this Olcott Oration is being organized today in honor of Colonel Henry Steele Olcott on the topic of alternative medicine and spirituality as tools for stress management and enhancing individual performance. Stress produces numerous physical and mental symptoms which vary according to each individual's situational factors. These include physical health decline as well as depression. When you let your stress get the best out of you, you put yourself at risk developing a range of illness from common cold to severe heart disease. The process of stress management is named as one of the keys to a happy and successful lives in modern society. To tell you more about stress management, we have our speaker tonight, a renowned scholar, Professor of Medicine and Endocrinology at Cardiometabolic Institute, New Jersey, USA. Dr. Wimalawansa is a clinician scientist, a faculty member, medical educator for 38 years, a world-renowned expert in endocrinology, osteoporosis, and metabolic bone disease, and vitamin D and nutrition. Dr. Wimalawansa, it is indeed a great honor to have you with us as the speaker of this inaugural Olcott Oration. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to present a few highlights from the profiles of Dr. Wimalawansa, which I am amazed of. Dr. Sunil Wimalawansa has earned fellowships from Royal College of Physicians, American College of Physicians, American College of Diabetes Specialists, and Ceylon College of Physicians. Honors and awards received by Dr. Wimalawansa are Dr. Boy Frame Award for the Clinical Excellence in Metabolic Bone Diseases, American Endocrine Society Glenn Foundation Awards, Asian Chamber of Commerce Award, and Dr. Oscar Gluck Humanitarian of the Year Award. To name a few affiliations of our renowned speaker: founder, executive president, International Foundation for Revitalization, Empowerment and Education and Development. Founder president, Hele Bodu Padanama in North America. President, Wimalawansa Foundation, which helps those who are in need, including introducing action plan to eradicate chronic kidney disease from North Central province of Sri Lanka. And member of National Advisory Council on South Asian Affairs. Published works of Dr. Wimalawansa include numerous peer-reviewed articles, book chapters, abstracts, 4 books, and importantly, 6 medical patents. Dr. Wimalawansa holds several academic credentials, including 3 doctorates: Doctor of Medicine, Doctor of Philosophy, and Doctor of Science. Surprisingly, Colonel Olcott was born in New Jersey, USA, and arrived in Sri Lanka for the first time from the Galle port. And Dr. Wimalawansa was born in Galle and currently based in New Jersey, USA. Ladies and gentlemen, I should not take much of your time. Please join with me in warmly welcoming our eminent speaker of the inaugural Olcott Oration, also a remarkable old Anandian, Dr. Wimalawansa, Dr. Sunil Wimalawansa.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come and address this distinguished audience. And really, working day, and really appreciate your presence in this evening. So the topic I was asked to give is kind of very broad, but I'm going to cover several areas. Prior to that, let me very briefly go through the Olcott. It's something complementary to your secretary was mentioning about. So we have a history even going back before Colonel Olcott to set the stage for the so-called Buddhist revival in Sri Lanka. So these are the key pillars, some of the key really people who helped to stage the scene for Colonel Olcott to do what he did for us today. I submit you that virtually none of you will be here today if Colonel Olcott didn't go to Sri Lanka, because he actually initiated most of the schools, and schools like Anand and all that then subsequently provided teachers to other schools like St. Thomas's, Royal, and things. 80% of the teachers actually generated from Anand. So in the absence of Colonel Olcott, that wouldn't have happened. So all of you, I trust that will be here because of, at least in part of, due to him. So you already heard that he's a great revival person behind us as the other complementary thing. That he's the guy who really got the Vesak as an international holiday going back more than 140 years ago. So you already heard that he designed the international Buddhist flag, which accepted United Nations and multiple countries. And he also established a few other key things like Mahabodhi Society, Theosophical Society of New Jersey, New York, as well as back in Sri Lanka in 1892, I think that was. So here's a summary of what he did, his visionary for us, for the future. So within the first 12 years, he managed to create 400 schools in the country. Similarly, technically Buddhist school, but there was no restriction for anybody else to get into these schools either. So imagine nowadays, this year, constructing 400 new schools back in Sri Lanka. It's not going to happen. But this guy had a vision of doing that, but he was supported by the bunch of very good people to make that happen. So we already heard that some of these schools was originated through his foundation. And there are a lot more schools than this list. And he had a vision for the future. He knew that he was thinking about 50 years ahead what the country should look like. So that's what really persuaded him to do what he did for the country. And as a good Buddhist, he really has, he did things without expecting anything returned back to him. That's kind of a motto of Buddhism to start with. So, having said that, let's start to the topic of today, which is alternative medicine, or generally how we could use the spirituality and meditation to improve our lifestyles. And hopefully, I was hoping that there were some children here, but education as well as the work performance, so that you can be proud of what you're doing more than even doing today. So the objective of the presentation is to understand that there's a role of other things and other than we taken for granted of what we're doing today to alleviate the stress and to improve our performance and make your life, our life, little happier than what it could be. Because all of us living in a fairly stressful environment, very stressful, somewhere in the middle, and we come to that, and so we need a certain degree of stress to work efficiently. But if that level increases more than what you could handle or what you could adapt to, that's where the problem starts. So these are the 4 areas I'm going to briefly cover during the next hour or so. So what is health basically? Health is basically not a physical health alone. It's a combination of our emotional health, mental health, which is not the same as emotional health, together with the physical health. To have a healthy life, you need to have a healthful mind and healthy body. It has to go together. We cannot separate the mind from the body to become happier and prosperous and leading a good life. So, in the absence of any of those, either mental health or physical health, you're clearly going to have abnormal stresses going to build up in your lifestyle. So, sometimes it's unavoidable. Then what you need to do actually to develop your own methods, own techniques to handle the stress beneficial way, so that rather than succumbing to the stress, you actually use that stress to advantage for you, which can be done on an individual basis. Everybody need to develop your own technique of doing that. So let's start with the lifestyle issues which can or which should affect our health. To start with, activity. We used to be much more active than today, because we have cars, we drive right to the supermarket, we walk less, doesn't take the stairs, we take the elevators. We take all the shortcuts so that we have less exercise. So as a consequence, as you know, the type 2 diabetes as well as obesity, particularly abdominal obesity, is dramatically increasing throughout the world. And the rate of increase of these two, type 2 diabetes and obesity, is the highest in Southeast Asia. Sri Lanka is no exception. For example, if I tell you that incidence of diabetes or prevalence of diabetes used to be about 11-12%, but 15-20 years ago, now close to 20 plus. In fact, some cities, like I saw a report last week, in Goa is about 33%. Unbelievable. So that means 1 in 3 people living in the Goa city is now diabetic. Never heard of before. So part of that actually is the lifestyle change, that we have taken shortcuts. Traditional food we used to, Melbourne, but Paripu, and now drive from takeaway, all adds to the issue. Together with that, I'm strong belief that the stress, whether due to family or the workplace or economic, is really also pushing to the negativity to this area. Then of course the other bad habits of people adapting with time, peer pressure, smoking, alcohol, drugs, whatever, big list of things, which clearly going to affect your performance and happiness and your end of the day, the health. So there's an area should be addressed by individual as well. The last area is actually emotional health, which I already briefly mentioned, that because that directly related to physiology can lead to pathology with time, leading to various disorders. So emotional health cannot separate from the physical health either. Question is, how can you improve emotional health? I will give you some clues, a little bit very briefly how simple way of overcoming that kind of difficulty. So behavior is a problem. So let's see what's a modifiable behavior on to improve our lifestyle. So these are some of the simplest things you can see. The first is nutrition, we already went through very briefly. Then the lack of exercise. When I say weight bearing exercise, it is not weightlifting. It's not going to a gym and pay money and spending 2 hours. It's just walking, fast walking. Walking is the best exercise anybody can get. You don't have to run 10 miles a day or 10 miles a week. You're not designed to do that as a human being. Of course you can do it, you can train. I have done several full marathons myself. I was stupid those days, I didn't know that. It's not physiological. I would do that. So human beings are not designed to run long distance like that. We are designed by the evolution to run short distance, hunter gathering, you catch animal, eat and sleep for the next day or two. So our muscular system, bones, and the genes are designed to short bouts of exercise, which generally beneficial effect lasts about 1 or 2 days, single 10 minutes exercise. So physiologically, if you look at it, if you can exercise 10-15 minutes a day, again, what I'm talking about is fast walking. This is something that's very simple, climbing stairs. The beneficial effects last 1 to 3 days. So you don't have to go to gym and spend several hours, and some people doing that. Then again, there is no brainer that there are bad habits you need to stop it. Smoking, for example, alcohol. All these are harmful on the long-term basis. So the mind is the one who controls us. Mind can control anything. So mind control our activity, our thought process. Either it can make us peaceful, or it can make us real bad people or stressful people. So look at historically any leaders and any dictator. Just take Hitler for example. He had a brilliant mind, but that mind was designed to destruction. So similarly, people who developed the atomic bomb, they are brilliant scientists, but it was directed to destruction rather than the construction. So mind control everything in a good way or bad way. Similarly, we talk about calorie intake. So mind control what we should eat, but we should not eat. Temptation is the one really breaking the line. So I'm not going to read any of these slides. It's self-explanatory, and you should be able to see that. But these are some of the modifiable behaviors. Some are very simple. Little change of your lifestyle, it can make a big difference on the outcome on the longer-term basis. May not be for the week or two, but certainly in the 6 months, 1 year, 2 year basis, your life can be much better if you change a little bit of 10% here, 10% there, any of these activities. So we'll come to that, the last item. People nowadays depending on go to doctors and getting prescription for controlling their stresses, which is absolutely the wrong thing to do. Antidepressant, for example, it does not even address the fundamental root causes of depression. It just temporarily changing your chemicals in your brain, and so hopefully some people, 50% will feel better, other people will get nothing. But people who make this drug make billions. So when we take more and more, the companies get richer and richer. So we are really not addressing the fundamental issue of stress or the depression. So some of these we have already dealt with. Then the behavioral modification also has other components, including the prevention of medical disorders like obesity, diabetes, hypertension. All this can be preventable by simply changing your lifestyle. Why spending billions of dollars to take drugs to fix these things where you can do yourself proactively now, today? So if you're going to develop osteoporosis in 10 years, 15 years, if you do the exercise and take a balanced diet, stop smoking, you may never get it. Yet we wait till to get this disorder to appear and become diabetes and then struggle to try and control it, which is probably the wrong way to do that. So again, what matters is a determination of our mind to put it right direction at the right time, to overcome the negative components we see the TV advertisements all the time, particularly the children, and they get the temptation of latest thing they want, latest iPhone. Oh, iPhone 4 works as good as iPhone 6. Why have you changed? Just because your neighbor has it or your friend has it? That's a temptation. It's spurious or the whole sense of competition, which is really destroying our relationships, friendships, partnerships, and the economy of the individual families, because we don't need that. So, just to note about the planning of the day-to-day activity, because this is a common question people ask me quite often: how can you do 10 different things in a given day? Yes, you can. You manage your time efficiently. You plan it the day, the morning or the night before, whatever you do. But key is to have a flexibility of your plan. If you have a rigid plan, what happens is if A doesn't work, you're going to forget about the B, C, and D, then you will really end up with stress. Whereas if it doesn't one thing works well, you should be able to flexible to move to the next one, and do it and come back to the one you did before. In other words, psychologically, you should be able to flexible not only your family issues, the personal issues, as well as your business issues, your workforce at the same time. So the way I look at it, if you plan each minute what you're going to do in the day, you actually save 10 times of the time of your productivity. So imagine that you have been planned every hour, 1 minute or 10 minutes of the day. You could save an hour and a half of your time of how efficient you're going to accomplish a given task at any given time. So stress is inevitable. So therefore, you need to develop your own ways of dealing with the stress. Because everybody is different. Your way of stress is different from the one you're sitting next to you. Some people's stress is other person's nothing. That's normal. So in other words, stress is very, very relative term. Your stress is not my stress, I don't care. Whereas something else is my stress may be nothing for you guys. So you see that when you say I'm stressed, to me it's nothing. I don't know what stress is. It's a very, very relative term people are using so loosely. So what are you doing, or what do you do? Think about what you do when you are stressed. I want you to think positively in addition to reading. What do you do? Imagine the time you were really stressed last week, maybe last month. What have you done? Then think about what you have done to overcome it. How did you manage to overcome it? So did you manage or did you fail to do that? Simple thing, if you think backwards and see the particular stress and why it happened, how you dealt with it, the next time when you get a similar stress, you know how better to handle it because you know what causes the stress. I'll show you the next slide. We are talking about the root cause of that particular type of stress. And if you know that, then either you can avoid it, or it's an unavoidable stress, which is, for example, at workplaces, there are unavoidable stresses. Then, those things, then you should be able to overcome by adapting to your own method of delivering it. So these are some of the things you do generally or when you are stressed. Many of these items are really automatic. You won't think about it. You go and eat, you can drink, you go and smoke, do something automatically because that's what you adapt to do. But many of these things are not the right thing to do in somebody's stress. Whereas these are the things you think about, should do when you come across a stressful situation next time. Think about it. Again, I want to think about the next minute or so of how can you adapt this list. I mean, this is a very short list, but I can give you 20 different things. But these are the simple things you should adapt, particularly the children. You can tell them to adapt these things to when they come across a stress which is not beneficial for them. So again, to add to that list, there are things you can develop on your own. Again, very difficult to prescribe things like that because everybody is different, stresses are different, people behave stress in different ways. So you have to develop your own way of relaxation to overcome some of the critical aspects of the stress rather than reacting to the stress. So So if you develop slowly some technique, you should be able to handle it rather than reacting proactively, so that way you don't get the stress. You just fly through the stress and you will feel stress, because you cannot avoid the stress all the time. Stress is there, workplace. You got a multiple assignment, you are doing, instead of 10 days, you are doing 24 hours. So what? These things comes and goes sometimes. So if you know the rationale behind it, then you should be able to handle them less stressfully but more efficiently. So there are several things you can do, and one of the key things for accumulation of the stress is have a personal conflict, or anonymity with your workplace, family, or friends, or whatever. On the other hand, if you learn to, easy to say, but if you learn to know how to forgive other people's mistakes, it's a big step towards alleviation of individual stress, rather than building up your own mind and getting your blood pressure up, getting diabetes, obese, and go and smoke. Just let it go. Most of the time we fight against what I call the small potatoes, small things, which we dwell into the big things later because we're not willing to let it go. Think about again your situation of last month, one or two things. If you don't tell me that you didn't have that, I'll be surprised. Everybody goes through this kind of thing. Usually stressed up for nothing, for such a simple thing. But if you don't give up inability to forgive, those are going to get accumulated, culminated, and then you're going to start fighting, quarreling, writing bad emails, and all this stuff comes as a consequence. Again, in addition, there are other things like engaging some type of spiritual activity. It doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter what religion you are. Every religion has a spiritual component. So use that as your advantage, not as a slave for the religion, but turn it right for your advantage and use that principles to clean up your mind and help to get over with some of these issues. So the goals, simple goals are in life to identify the cause and elevation of those root cause analysis in your own case of stresses. It could be one, it could be more than one, depending on the circumstances and where you work and what kind of relationship you have. End of the day, what you look important is you need to stay healthy, both mentally, emotionally, and physically. If you don't have the health, there's no wealth. What's the point of having the wealth if you don't have the health? Right? It doesn't go like that. You can make millionaires, and a lot of millionaires are really sick, either mentally or physically, so they cannot even enjoy their lot of earnings necessarily. So change your high stress to a low stress by adapting the stressful situation for your advantage. How you do that is an individual basis. So you need to develop your own way of doing that, but it's very effective at doing that. Stressful situation, change it to a less stressful situation by you psychologically adapting to the situation. So that clearly leave your mind more peacefully, therefore your performance has to go up. I mean, there's no question about it. There are several small studies have done based on this concept and show that the productivity goes up anything from 20 to almost 50% individual basis. So imagine that you all are working in one company and your productivity goes up by 30%. Your boss will be happy, your company portfolio. So I already said that there's a mind and a body and not separate no matter what Pandit says. They all are very tightly connected. The mind is sick, the body is sick, the body is sick, the mind is sick. So both has to be improved simultaneously, and it can be done in many circumstances. So healthy mind is healthy body, no question about it. So you need to have both goes together. So let's talk about stress itself. What is stress? What do you think is stress? You want to talk about it? You want to think about it? As I said, the stress from one person is very different from the stress from another person. So stress is really in your mind, nothing to do with it. I cannot cause you stress unless you take it granted as a stress. If I try to cause you stress, for example, you just ignore it. You're fine. You're not going to get stressed. I'm the one who's going to get stressed, right? If you get into your brain and you try to get your blood pressure up, you try to react, who's going to lose? Not me, you. lose it. So you are the one who now getting stressed for unnecessarily because you took it for personally. So that's another area one could gradually develop, not to get it to personally. Somebody scolding at you, somebody hit you, or somebody in trouble, or write bad things about you. Who cares? So if you learn to dampen down your ego and let go a little bit, that could have major beneficial effects on the longer term. As I said before, when the mind is stressed, your body is automatically going to get stressed no matter what. We'll come back to that in a little while on a medical point of view. So stress is really not a bad thing. We need to have a certain stress to behave properly and improve our productivity. Imagine you work in the corporation and you take it completely free and you, whatever you go say, you don't do it. You'll be fired. So, you cannot work on that situation. You have to be flexible, and a certain amount of stress is necessary for studies for children as well as the work performance. Problem starts when that level becomes intolerable, or we don't know how to handle that reasonable amount of stress. Then you have to develop your own techniques to handle that. So again, a certain amount of stress is normal, and most circumstances you need it for us to function properly. And when it's excess, exceeding the certain threshold on an individual basis, that's where the problem starts. So why do I need to manage the stress? So unmanaged stress is clearly harmful, both physically, mentally, and emotionally. It drains you down, no question about it. If you drain you down, you cannot expect your productivity to go up. So you have become a less productive person for family, organization, or your at workforce, which is bad for you. So oops. So this is what happened to the most people in Western society. Look at the time scale, and so wake up in the morning, busy time. Nowadays, hardly any time to spend with the kids, running to schools, back to work. So because of the time constraint, you don't even take your lunch back to work now, like we used to do. You eat junk food, whatever the easy thing to do. So you're accumulating more unhelpful food in addition to the stress. So by the time to the end of the day, you are really stressed out. So you're bringing now work stress back home, which is totally unnecessary. Because your behavior is going to be now different from the normal behavior. So it's very unusual some stressful families who are able to sit down and eat together anymore because they're all stressed out, and dad is somewhere, mom is somewhere, the kids are on their own, and everybody's stressed out to the end of the day. So this is a kind of negative vicious cycle particularly the Western society, building up and causing a lot more issues, including high blood pressures, obesity, cancer. It's really related to stress, no question about it. A lot of data show that stressful life will lead to various types of cancer. So that's the reason we need to be able to develop their own ways of managing stress, because some of the circumstances you saw day-to-day life, we may not be able to avoid it. So what? We're facing, but we don't take that stress on full blown. So we need to learn how to dampen it down to do that, partly by relieving stress or avoiding certain circumstances. Having said that, most of us, including me, we create stress for ourselves because we accept things which we cannot complete. So what you call that, you bite more than what you can chew. So if you have multiple tasks you accept and then you can finish it, imagine your mentality, you're always frustrated, the negative thinking will go to build up, and the stress level go up sky high. Again, the root cause here is you're accepting things you cannot do. So perfectly okay to learn to say no, family, friends, society, or even at work. Not to get fired from the work, but there you should be able to learn, know your limit of tasks you can do. If you can do only 2 tasks and you will put on the 4 tasks, you will be stressed out and your work performance will be less, the quality of the output will be less. So who's going to suffer? Not the boss, you're going to suffer. Because they said, oh, this guy's crappy, he doesn't do the job well. Not that he can't do the job, but he will put on too many things he cannot handle. But the person responsibility is you, right in the middle, accepting and not saying no appropriately. Second area is a lot of people get into trouble is finances. So spending with the plastic cards, the money which you never had, you don't have, then you end up with multiple debt. Multiple credit cards mean your debt will continue to go up. So this again, if you think sensibly, this is an area very easy to fix it if you know what you're doing. And this area, you are essential that you need to teach and expose your children before they get into this debt cycle and get into major problems. The key is to actually when you stress, how to turn that into just positive for you. Instead of a negative vicious cycle, you're creating that into this positive cycle of stress management, breaking that negative vicious cycle of stress. So this photo from actually Switzerland, so it really shows what's happening here. This is not artificial, actually, it's in the bus, real bus. So that summarizes what the stress can do to you. Okay? You expose yourself, people commit suicide and family breakdown. If you analyze root cause, sometimes it's some very trivial things started all these problems for this individual basis. So unmanaged stress can lead to multiple disorders, no question about it, as I said, including the cancer. In addition, you create enemies because you behave badly, not voluntarily, but you unconsciously behave badly, so you create enemies, start shouting family disruption, and many things are going to happen, including the disabilities and premature death due to overstress. So if you start the day like this and end up the day 5 o'clock like this, there's something wrong with your lifestyle management. So perhaps you need to develop your own techniques of reducing that unmanageable stress to a manageable style. How you do that to the technique is up to you. People go and play sports, go for a walk, jog, meditation, doesn't matter what you do. It's an individual basis. That's what I said, it's very difficult to prescribe the global that we do this one, we're going to create the stress. It doesn't apply. Stress is different from person to person. Personalities are different. So, time to time we need to laugh. We have to perfectly right to laugh loudly and enjoy with the company, whatever the company, particularly family circumstances. So what we also need to learn or we need to teach our students, our children is actually to learn to be contained of what they have. As I said in the previous example from iPhone 5, the children is asking now, Daddy, buy me the iPhone 6. Don't give away. And that's such a stupid thing. Because the more you give, they don't know how to balance their life. You're actually putting them they're training them into the bad vicious cycle of economic non-understanding, competition, or competing with his peers. Oh, my friend has it, therefore I need to have it. So you're really breaking the basic principle, Buddhist principle of teaching non-containment for children. You're doing that really. So think about before you buy something, just because your son or daughter is asking you. You may be doing the wrong thing by buying something, a gadget for your children. So the principles also include that, as I said before, think about what happened today, last week or week before. What causes that stress to you, which really you upset so much? So again, think called, in business it's called root cause analysis. It's the same thing in life, nothing fancy about it. And then develop the thinking of positive attitude, that particular stress, and think how you can dampen it down or eliminate it altogether. You can avoid it. But sometimes, as I said, at workplace it's very difficult to avoid it, so you need to deal with it in a different way. Some people like to do yoga, tai chi, meditation. Fine. You find a way what you like to do, what you enjoy to do to overcome that stressful situation, so that you can dampen down the level of stress from unmanageable to manageable level of stress. Again, I cannot overemphasize the importance of healthful lifestyle and healthy food and its influence on your mind and body. So, we all need reliable friends. Friends can be helpful. At the same time, non-reliables can be very harmful to anybody's life. Some people end up in jail just because they are associated with their unfaithful friends. So, overall, the trend in the West, particularly to stress, is to go to a doctor and get a prescription for antidepressant or something chemical. It doesn't address anything. It's like having a cigarette for 10 minutes satisfaction. What happened after that? You're back to the square one. So, or you're addicted to it, you're going to become a chain smoker. Same as you started with 1 glass of alcohol and a month later you need 2 glasses. 6 months later you need the whole bottle to satisfy your stress level. So these are not the answers to combat stress or anything here. All is a negative vicious cycle. Eventually you will go down the drain and perhaps premature death due to bad behavior. So learning to manage the stress individual basis is the most important thing. So this slide basically summarizes why we should not rely on Western medicine or any medicine for that matter to relieve your stress. It's the wrong thing to do, and you're never going to achieve the goal that you're going to. Particularly the things like stimulants, if you're going to use tobacco, coffee, tea, whatever, to relieve the stress temporary basis, you're going to get depending on that kind of a stimulant maintain your lifestyle. That's how the beginning of addiction starts. Whether it's addiction to alcohol, drugs, smoking, it's the same thing. Part of the brain pushing the addiction is identical. It's exactly the same place. No matter what drug you use, no matter what alcohol you use, no matter what bad things you do, the addiction part of the brain is exactly the same. Same chemicals will create the addiction and maintain the addiction. So when you're treating the addiction, doesn't matter what addiction you are, treatment is the same basically, in addition to psychological, psychotherapy component. The point here actually that no medicine can reverse your stress healthfully. So there are ways of avoiding the stress. You have to develop that on your own style. So let's now look at the effect of stress on our health. A little bit more details on what would excessive or unmanageable stress do to you. Firstly, the health is defined by the WHO, or any definition you can look at it, is the state of complete physical, mental and social well-being. It's not one part of it, it's a complete entire capsule of the whole thing, whole body. So in the absence of any of these, physical, mental or social well-being, you can only consider yourself as a healthy person. You may be lifting 400 pounds, you're a muscular man, but if you don't have the mental health or social well-being, how can you call yourself a healthy person? It doesn't work like that. You have to have a balanced life, it all goes together. So these are the two contrasts. When you're healthy on your left, and if you're not healthy, suffering and disease progress. So, Eastern part of the world, understanding that good health is a balance between the body and mind, so-called Chinese called yin and yang. It's the same principle basically. So mind-body connection. So one is connected to the other, so we need to control both or improve the health of both to become really healthy and happy person. So So similarly, life and the environment also interaction. So to have a healthier life and a healthy environment, if you live in a city with, you can see with the smoke all the time, are you going to be healthy? You will have trouble, right? Like in Chinese city, for example, sometimes you go there, you can't even see them. You cannot even see more than 15 feet. So much smoke. The people are dying of 8, 30, and 40s by inhaling all these chemicals. So environment is critically important. And secondly, more important actually, to people think that they can damage the environment and disrupt it and get away with it. Never. Damage the environment, they always come back with rain. They always cause human and animal diseases. That's exactly what happened back in Sri Lanka. I think you mentioned about chronic kidney disease in Sri Lanka. That's because we, as a collective, particularly farmers, are damaging our environment big time. So you can't expect the environment to not to react back and causing human health disease. I have seen personally injecting, spraying all nasty chemical, pollution, all this stuff, and throwing the empty can into the stream. Look at 10 minutes later, all the fish in that area will be dead, and the people down the stream drinking that water. So who causing the problems? Farmers themselves. So not only the farmers, the companies doing the same things, people who selling this agrochemicals do the same thing. So as a government, we encourage them to do the same thing, because we do not think the long-term benefits of preservation of our environment. So I'm going to re-emphasize that the good mental health is important for good physical health as well. So we have a healthy, balanced diet, some kind of relaxation, exercise, yoga, tai chi, sports, together with helpful medical issues like supplements and the meditation can lead to beneficial things on the longer term. And medications is the last step, should be the last step in our ability to adapt to the social circumstances. So when we are stressed, there are multiple things happen on the physiological and pathophysiological in our bodies, including that we have anxiety, fear, depression, anger, sadness, a whole bunch of ways. So it also translates into the physiological, we break down the physiological balance in our virtually every system in the body. People develop gastric acidity, gastric ulcers, bleeding, chest pains, strokes, kidney problems, you name anything can happen as a consequence of unmanageable stress. Again, when you think about it in Western medicine, what we do, what I do, what I did, is holding the tiger's tail. Trying to treat this is absolutely useless, honestly. We are not addressing the why this person developed gastric ulcers. If gastric ulcers are due to stress, what's the point of treating the ulcers itself rather than educating that person to elevation of the stress? Because if you treat it, it will come back again 3 to 6 months. You see my point? You have to address a fundamental issue of imbalanced physiology, what we call pathology, correct it back to the physiology by changing the lifestyle. Because almost 70% of the diseases today is due to some kind of lifestyle issue, including stress. So treating this part with the medication and the pharmaceutical company is not the right answer for treating properly on an individual basis for anybody. But in Western medicine, that's what we're trained. Right? You go to medical school, we teach them, or use that drug, this drug, and you're fine. But we never combine or educate the training doctors, nurses, and healthcare workers about the more important part of that, which is the psychological part of them to handle their health better. Is that prevention is better than the cure? So, but we are not addressing this component at all, except that it's 20%, 30% on your right side of the screen, and that's what you're spending billions and trillions of dollars for creating, which in my opinion is really a waste of money and money down the drain. So we know that now stress leads to a lot of diseases, including cancer, and it can be overcome by various means. In fact, if you look at the non-communicable diseases, basically like you exclude the infections, almost like 2/3 of can be linked to unmanageable stress on an individual basis. So it's paramount that when somebody treating somebody, a family having an issue, to address that component, because otherwise it's very, very going to come back over and over again and causing tremendous difficulties to individually as well as for the family. So emotion impairs clearly affect the health, but sometimes emotions happen in day-to-day life. We come across things, people scold at us, some quarrels and families argue. Again, it's perfectly okay to disagree, but no need to take that as a personal basis and raise your blood pressure. At the end of the day, you are the one who's going to suffer, not the person who caused you the stress. So you don't want to end up with getting blood pressure high and end up with stroke and go to hospital for no reason, right? So think carefully. I mean, think back and see that why couldn't have ignored that stress because he or she is scolding me, so what? So you ignore that to a certain degree. Many circumstances you'll be surprised that we can ignore those things. If you ignore repeatedly, you think that that person is going to continue the stress? No, he's going to give up. He's going to get stressed now because he tried multiple times to hurt you, and you just laughed at him. So that person is going to give up eventually. So he's the person who's going to, he or she is the person who gets stressed, not you. It's not your problem thing. So let's talk about a little bit from the medical point of view, what stress does us. So stress activates 3 key hormones in the body, stress hormones, what we call them. So in those excess production of stress hormone lead to affect actually every cells in the body negatively. It actually decreases the functioning of some of these organs, including the brain, heart, and the kidney. So our body is going to get affected because we're not managing our stress properly. And also this endocrine system and the hormones, excessive production of hormone affects all these subtitles now at the bottom of the slide. So these are not fun. We are actually creating problems for ourselves, which could be decreased significantly. So this slide summarizes basically on the endocrine system or the hormone producing glands in the body, right in the middle, and shows how it does affect the system, body system. For example, adrenaline comes from an adrenal gland. So as a corticosteroid, glucocorticosteroid from that adrenal cortex. Those are the 2 key hormones which causes sustenance of the stress. So if I divert attention a little bit, you probably have heard a thing called post-traumatic stress syndrome. How many of you have heard that? PTSD. Some people have heard that. PTSD is very well studied entity for soldiers going to war and coming back with a mental stress. But although it's a very study that the vast majority of the 2/3 or even more than the 2/3 of the people in the world get PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, not related to war issues, due to violence, robberies, accident, acute health issues. Those are very stressful events on an individual basis. So those can cause acute stress, but some people it means nothing, but others it's a major stressful event and they cannot get over it for a longer term basis. So these people, what happened actually, you get instead of getting higher corticosteroid, it's actually adrenal gland gets suppressed due to internal stress. So they are not appropriately responding to glucocorticoids, but unfortunately the adrenaline and noradrenaline level, the stress hormone, they're sky high and it remains high. They're not supposed to remain high. It goes to a stressful situation, it goes up, you either run away or fight. That's what the adrenaline is designed to. So flight response. So on the other hand, what happened to these guys is the remaining high of these 2 hormones, which cause a tremendous amount of the stress within the brain and actually reshape the brain, modulate the brain size in certain components and actually structurally changes the brain. It can be demonstrated by MRI technology, for example, MRI. And interestingly, there are several studies from US, 3 universities now shown that meditation, using mostly by using the monks. The monks were meditated for 30, 40 years, showing that exactly opposite of this monk's brain, that this particular stress area actually shrunk very, very small compared to the you and I, or certainly for the people who are coming from the wars and PTSD, which are much, much bigger. So, important thing to realize that those are, even though these people have larger areas of hippocampus and particular areas of the brain, that can be restructured again through the stress relieving mechanism. And meditation, one of the simplest things can do to reverse that structural changes back to normality, which we never thought 20, 30 years ago which it could do. So these are the three key areas in the brain: the hypothalamus, pituitary, both are part of the brain, and then adrenal glands, which is for the kidneys producing all these bad hormones, stress hormones, to maintain the stress level. So let's look at very briefly both emotional health and physical health separately, and how we could try to improve by having a balanced life. Nutrition is part of the balanced life, clearly. So avoiding the smoking and alcohol is part of that too. And with taking the life on a positive way rather than looking at the glass half empty kind of important time. Negativity always pull you down, that the positivity will be always helpful for immune system and body function. So you can also incorporate a certain degree of spirituality. Basically, spirituality is not a fancy word, it's basically the behavior, right behavior. As you know very well with the Panchasila, the first 5 precepts, that's what the code of conduct of Buddhist faith. So that's part of the major part of the spirituality, is to follow those 5 precepts. It can change somebody's life dramatically if you follow them. How many of you follow them? Think about it, whether you actually do all 5 consistent fashion on a day-to-day basis. Then think about, if not, why not? Why am I not doing that? Then you think about it, how can I improve so that if I'm doing only 3, can I make it 4 this year? Maybe year after I can do all 5. Can you do that? Of course you can do that. It's all here. It's up to individual person to do that. But simple change of life based on the spirituality, the spiritual belief, can make a tremendous difference to you, your family, and the entire community. Because your community becomes peaceful, there are no more drunken people behaving bad. Just for example, I mean, it can have a tremendous effect on the long-term peace and sustainability of communities. So what happened at the other extreme, undisciplined or uncultivated mind? So mind is like a monkey in your mind and jumping from one to the other, all bad things. Because you continues to bombard it with thoughts. Every minute we might get several dozens of new thoughts coming in, goes out, and you don't retain most of them. But if you think about it, just think about it, 5 seconds, number of thoughts going through your brain. So many. It's like a machine. Continuously going there. So the uncontrolled mind, the amount of thought process going through them out and weeding them one at a time, and eventually you know what's bad thought is coming. You should eliminate them at the very beginning rather than come to your thoughts and think about it, and then so basically you're eliminating the bad thoughts to much as you can with the development of your mind. Whereas the other end, the disciplined mind, the mind can develop through whatever means, so meditation, spirituality, good thinking, whatever it is a calm mind. It doesn't, like, it's not wrong. See that you basically maintain your thought process, and you get bad thought, but you identify them early enough. This is a bad thought, and you should be able to eliminate them very quickly, rather than an untrained mind or uncalm mind. You're thinking about the bad thought, oh, what I'm going to do, I'm going to destroy that person, this person, I'm going to rob them, something. You think about it, but it's a calm mind, trained mind, bad thought comes, you know exactly what's coming, and you should be able to eliminate them right at the beginning. So you don't even spend a second on that kind of thing. So that what I could do actually let's do a 1 or 2 minutes little exercise. but create something now. Everybody has got a pen and a pencil, right? Grab that. I'm not going to ask you to write story, just simple thing. Right. Close your eyes and write your name on that paper. But not looking at it, just close your eyes and write your name on that paper. Alright, you can open your eyes now. Now think about what process went through when you're writing your name. Now you're not looking at it. You're mentally thinking about it, right? So that's a process we're trying to develop on mindfulness. Simple as that. Nothing magic about it. You are mindful of what you're doing. Whereas if you're writing your name while you're looking at it, you can talk about using your cell phone, trying to find different things. You're not mindful. You're not putting attention to any of those when you're multitasking. I do that all the time. 10 different things I can do. But this is the simple basis of mindfulness. The task you are doing at it, whether you're having a cup of tea or writing your name down or talking to somebody over the phone, if you're mindful, the error rate could be much, much less. It may not be zero. But the development of mindfulness starts with the concentrating on what you do and that current moment. In other words, in Buddhism we call it living in the current moment or present moment. So all those things together, but this simple exercise actually show you that the task you did just now, you're writing the name without looking at it, you couldn't have done it unless you focus what you're writing down. Right? You never thought of anything, just write, you're going to write somebody else's name, maybe you just scribble. And when you look at it, it's unreadable, then obviously you're not focusing your mind. Your mind is elsewhere. You know, if you're able to write, not now, when you wrote at the beginning, if you're able to do that, then you're actually able to, even for that few seconds, you'll be able to concentrate your mind on the task. So the goal of meditation, for example, just summarizing through just 2 or 3 sentences, is not only develop the mindfulness, which you had experienced now, but apply that to day-to-day activities. That's the key thing. So just because you're meditating 10 minutes and the next 24 hours you do bad things, then you're not actually applying what you learned, what your mindfulness to the day-to-day life. When you're driving, when doing a task or doing a project, whatever project you are doing, if you're mindful, then you're actually concentrating right up to that task you're doing. So then the children attending the exam, for example, if you are mindful and able to control your focus during that 1 hour, 2 hours in the test, they'll be able to finish very efficiently in half the time of that allocated time, because their mind is not jumping from Australia to what maybe last night or what they're going to eat next morning, that kind of thing. Our mind is very fragile, goes all over the place. So again, I want you to think about it. I mean, this will not be the right time. You get a time maybe tonight, tomorrow, maybe next week. How that can be applied to your day-to-day activities. Simple. Start with the very simple things: making a cup of tea, drinking tea or coffee. Drinking automatically without thinking versus mindful drinking. Again, it's not a fashion to do that, but if you do that, then you'll be able to automatically develop the skills to be mindful of the activities you're doing. So if you're mindful, think about it, if you're mindful of the activities you're doing, would you do bad things? You go and steal somebody's wallet or kill somebody? You won't do it. Now you know that you're mindful, you understand that you're doing things right or wrong. Whereas you do like a routine, like a parrot speaking, you don't think about it. You just do, and then later you think about, oh, I did a bad thing. It's too late. So that's the beauty of the mindfulness. The whole idea of mindfulness is to apply, learn to develop mindfulness, apply to day-to-day activities, second to second, so that you will stay within the social norms, and if you do the right thing, look at the chance of getting stress out of that. Very low, right? Almost none. On the other hand, if you're not mindful and you do a bad thing, you're going to get stressed, accumulated. Somebody's going to cause problem for you. such a simple asset. I'm putting the simplest way of how mindful works for you on a longer term basis. So, with that as Buddhist meditation, that you're talking about the living at the present moment, you are aware of what you're doing now at your present. Right now, you're listening to what I'm saying, but at the same time, you'll be able to think whether what I'm saying is useful or not. Can I apply that to my life, your life, now, tomorrow, tonight? That's the important part. You need to be able to think positively, concentrate, and see whether you can apply, even for 5 minutes, you can be, even 3 times a day, whatever it is, simple thing. Do that and see how you can develop gradually with time. Let's move on to the meditation itself, and very briefly, I'm not going to teach you meditation, it's not the time to do that, but I'm going to talk about the effects of meditation and how it affects the health and well-being of all of us. So the interest in the meditation and the medication words arise both from the Latin word medicus, care, or cure. So that's very interesting, and it's not a coincidence, it's actually very important to understand that. So, question is how the meditation affects individual basis or shift our priorities. Clearly, it's helped you to be living in the present moment, which means you are very unlikely to do negative things, bad things, and chances are whatever you do is more productive for you, your family, and your workplace. So it will be all productive, positive things. So basically, meditation also doesn't arise in the vacuum. It also comes with a certain degree of spirituality. You have to have an understanding of right from wrong. Meditation, it does not exist by itself in somebody with a criminal mind, for example, and very difficult to put that person to, even for 5 minutes or 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30-second meditation program, because mind is all over the place. Mind thinking about how to harm you, how to harm somebody else. So on the other hand, if somebody is practicing 5 precepts, for example, any religious precept, doesn't matter what it is, to have a baseline of underlying spirituality already. It's a matter of questioning how you as an individual put that into practice. Whether you lie to somebody for criminal activities, for drinking alcohol and getting drunk every night. These are individual things. Every religion in the world was teaching about these things. Even though people interpret it differently, but every religious leader has said these are the good things to do. So think about how you can adapt that to your own lifestyle on a day-to-day basis. That eventually, if you time during 6 months, 6 years, doesn't matter. Eventually, your life, your subconscious mind will be engulfed with this precept or spirituality. So it becomes a routine part of you. You don't have to think about it, whether do the right thing or wrong. Because you have done, you have think about so many times, you practice that, it becomes a routine thing, just like your baby. You don't think about your baby. That will happen automatically. Similarly, if you know from the right from the wrong, always the right will come automatically. As soon as the wrong thing comes, as I said before, your negative thoughts coming in, you should be able to filter, identify them and filter them in seconds. So these are the kind of things you, as adults, parents, need to be, I won't say to teach, but to give by examples for children to learn the way you behave, and they can adapt the right behavior for their future. So meditation actually is not a religious thing, it's everybody. US meditation is one of the fastest growing trend, almost like a 3 or 4% a year. People doesn't adapt or become Buddhist, but they become Buddhist to learn meditation. So they know the value of meditation, but we don't. We know the value of meditation, we don't care. Most of these times, we are Buddhist by name or by birth or whatever. So we take it for granted that's good enough. But if you want to become successful longer term, to be good for you, good for your family, good for your community, these things can really help you to your internal mind and the peace. So when you meditate, clear your mind become calm. Maybe not the first few weeks, maybe not for the first few months. You have to practice daily basis, long time. Your mind become calm and calm. You don't get disturbed with the thoughts. You don't get annoyed with somebody calling your name, because you know how to deal with these things. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to practice, keep practicing. So with that, your inner peace and inner relaxation will come automatically. You don't have to think about it. And ability to concentrate going to be better. You can solve the problems. Kids can go and do the exams better now. And technical problems, the technical people feel you should do that more efficiently now in a shorter period. Now you can concentrate, focus, and get the job done shortest period. So overall, it improves the emotional stability, your internal peace, and your intuition to do the right thing for right reasons. So meditation improves multiple things. For example, awareness. So awareness of current and the surroundings. Certainly improves concentration, no question about it. These are the few other things meditation does on a deeper level with the practice going on forward. So there are a lot of recent over the past 30 years or so, there are a lot of research has been done on meditation. Again, as I said, they're mostly using the Tibetan monks who are doing meditation for 6-7 hours a day on a long-term basis. And as I said, their brain part has been shown so different from non-meditative people. There must be something structurally and functionally happening on a long-term basis. So the other side of the story, actually, you're stressed, you're angry all the time, clearly, it's no brainer that it's going to affect your performance. It's going to affect your productivity. It's going to affect your peace within you, within the family, and between individual people as well. So again, this idea is to break that vicious cycle, become less stressful, less angry. Hopefully, you can build on that longer term to become more peaceful and productive person for the community. Let me skip this one, it's too much detail. Now, so let's look at the physical benefits. So those are the emotional or mental benefits. Now, what about the physical benefits of stress, meditation? Now, again, studies have shown that clearly reduce blood pressure, heart rate, respiratory rate, that means you're calm within, so that you don't have to breathe fastly, the heart doesn't have to pump so faster because you're not too excited. Less anxiety, anger, and hostility, because you know how to not to get your stress into your system. You know how to weed them off with mentality. So there are several things like that improve fairly quickly. In fact, in my own medical practice, I've practiced now for 40 years, and I always tell people, my patients, on not religious meditation, just very simple techniques of self-relaxation and mental isolation, things like that. Many of them, and also where I'm practicing now, there is a couple of teachers from Zen medicine teachers, exceptionally good. They're both professors happen to be in English, actually, professors, American professors. They teach meditation 3 times a week. So I send some of my patients to attend those classes as well. You'll be surprised that many patients be able to get rid of almost all their medication, like blood pressure medication, after about a year or 2, they don't take it. And they are shocked. I'm not shocked, I know that's going to happen, but the patient actually say, I don't have to need any medicine. I said, sure, you don't have to see me either. You don't have to come back again, because you're now out of that particular type of stress. You know how to manage your stress through meditation. Just continue that. It costs nothing. So there are a lot of things you can do on an individual basis or even group basis to improve their lifestyle and the health and mental well-being. So emotional benefits, also those are no-brainer. You actually become a kinder person, compassionate person. And again, I'm not going to go through the list, but these are the beneficial things you will automatically develop with long-term regular meditation practices or some kind of relaxation practices, whatever things you want to do. Again, I'm not talking about specifically religious-based meditation. You can do any type of meditation, relaxation would helpful. So when you develop a loving kindness through meditation, thought process, you will become more charitable, you become generous, you help each other, your neighbors, your family, and people suffering from other countries. And that compassion will become actually positive vicious cycle. So when you develop this positive vicious cycle, you become internally happy. And that internal happiness will end up as a serenity. People will recognize that very quickly. You don't have to tell other people that you are a serene person, you are a happy person. This becomes automatically visible to anybody. So, the next one I'm going to talk about is the thing called 1 minute meditation. How many of you have heard of that? I have a series of meditation books I published a couple of years ago. In one of those books I had a few chapters on 1 minute meditation. But I'm going to go through that because this is one of the things you can do yourself while at work. Very simple. So basically, we accumulated most of our, almost 78% of our stress is at work. Whether we like it or not, that's a general consensus. Your workload, colleagues will not listen to you, your subordinate doesn't work what you do, and your supervisors, whatever it is, whatever the reason, you accumulate your stress. To the end of the day, you are exhausted. You're coming back with a bag of stress in your mind, then you shout at your spouse at home, screaming at your kids, unnecessary. They don't deserve that kind of behavior from you when you go back home with your stress. Idea is actually to, when you finish your work at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, whenever it is, you leave the stress back at work. You should go home same as you came out of home. Does that make sense? Like, in other words, you absolutely not need to bring the work stress back at home. So this is a simple technique you can do to avoid that happening. Extremely simple. So every hour at work, every 2 hours, whatever you want to do, take a minute or two for yourself. I do this routinely because I used to work in an extremely stressful environment, all kind of stuff going on. So I want to refresh myself several times a day to face the next bout of stress, which is so that it doesn't matter to me. So take 1 or 2 minutes, and the simplest way to relax at the work environment is to take a couple of deep breaths. The Indian system called it pranayama. It doesn't matter what name you use. If you take 2 or 3 deep breaths, you feel relaxed. It's not meditation. It's just simple physiology. Basically, you improve your oxygenation, you relax your muscles, and you only have to do 2 or 3 deep breaths. And then close your eyes and think about what happened in the previous hour or 2 hours, depending on that. So you know that if you had a stressful situation, you identify that immediately. Then think about it, how it happened, why it happened, how can I avoid it. Because you don't want to bring that stress to the next meeting, next project, or next advisory meeting or something like that. You basically think about it and eliminate it at that particular time. So if you do that, imagine that you do it 8 times a day, just 8 minutes. By then at 5 o'clock, you have nothing to do. No stress to your mind to bring back home. Otherwise what happens is that 8 hours stress will bring it up. You're taken back home and you're an angry person. Unnecessary. You have to do that. So you can eliminate that very easily by doing this kind of very simple things. So just 1 minute an hour. I'm sure everybody can afford to do that. But that the benefits in practice and see that the benefits are tremendous. So these are the kind of visible benefit you will feel within the first few weeks of doing this one. So you revitalize your energy, so you are facing the next task with a fresh blood now, fresh breath of air. So I'm going to do a practice of meditation. I mean, you can do it yourself, and if there's kids out there, I'd love to do that. I think we can skip that. But here's the advantage of this 1 minute meditation. So, as I said, you minimize your day-to-day stressors, and last thing you want is to take stress home. Please don't do that. It's bad for you, bad for your family. So, you can eliminate that by this simple technique. Just practice. Again, it's not a one straightforward thing. Everybody is different. You do one technique, and you will do one technique very quickly if you do this kind of a practical procedure on a daily basis. So, again, imagine that you're really spending 8 minutes or 10 minutes a day. This is for you, your health, your mental health, your physical health, and your family's benefit. So I think it's fully worthwhile spending 8 to 10 minutes during the work time for benefit for all of us. So end of the day, basically you will be refreshed, you will be happy with working out of the office. So when you come home, you will be a pleasant person for your family. So we all need this kind of stress, simple methodologies, practical way of relieving the mental agony, stress, accumulation, to improve our mind-body interactions. So what's the connection between the health, wealth, and diseases? Does the wealth will bring you happiness? No. So the wealth will improve your health status? Up to a certain degree, yes, because you can go to better doctors, better hospital, and get a heart transplant, whatever it is. It's all short-term stuff. But in general, wealth brings nothing. Sometimes except the misery. That doesn't mean generation of money is a bad thing. It's a good thing as long as you do the raising funds and generation of money on the ethical issue. Sure, absolutely. But what happened is more than 50% of the population generate funds for economy, but screwing somebody else's. They're compromising somebody else's, selling bad products. Or selling the bad insurance, knowing that it's a bad thing to do. Whatever it means, they're going to make money, or making some dynamite or gun, somebody selling to kill. All these are being documented very well, and it's said in most of the sutras, if you look at it in Buddhism. So the first 40, 50 years in our life, we work so hard to make money, all of us. But we forget our health. Many of us become not healthy by between 50 to 60 years of age. Think about your friends and colleagues, mothers, fathers, uncles, aunts, make the same mistake. They work very hard in the first 50 years, and by the time 51, 55, 60, they have multiple medical issues. They neglect themselves because their focus was on raising money. So, what happened the remaining half? You now accumulated wealth, now you're going to spend all that money to doctors and hospitals to keep yourself better. So this is a vicious cycle. By the time we realize that, generally it's too late. So this is another area really be useful for you to impart this kind of message to your younger generation, children particularly, and middle-aged adults, 20s, 30s, and 40s, because they don't understand this. You didn't understand that. I didn't understand when I was 30s, this principle. The mistakes we're doing. But it's nice that you can impart this kind of very simple message to them to have a balanced life. So, to have the optimal, when you have the optimal health, you actually increase your happiness, your inner peace will develop. It's a big thing to have it free. You cannot buy the inner peace no matter how well you are. It's impossible to do that. You can only develop within yourself, and nobody can even move you. So, it also, practical point of view, when you have the inner peace and you're happy, you actually make less errors. I used to have less errors, construction the 100-floor building or collapse, or some surgeon doing the operation, and if there's less errors, the less patient will be dying. So all these are good things, you can do that. And end of the day, you can have a more happier family units as well. So, in addition to the good nutrition, balanced diet, exercise, relaxation, and if necessary, some medical help. There are other things you do to optimize your lifestyle and the inner happiness, to your inner happiness, which you cannot buy. Again, very important for us to teach our kids, younger generation, that happiness is not equal to wealth. Nothing to do with each other. In fact, they're totally two different paths to look at in most instances. But most of the wealthy people in the world are very, very unhappy people. In fact, they die early, they get into trouble and start drinking. Interestingly, there's a report from the US, the people who won the lotteries, millions of dollars. Virtually 95% they might die prematurely. They won $50 million and die in 5 years. It's true. Actually, it's historically that there was a nice payback. Somebody now is going backwards because suddenly earn millions, they don't know what to do. Majority of them start drinking, smoking, all kinds of bad things because now they have money, they don't know what to do with it. Rather than giving to other people, they try to use them. You have 10, 20 million, it's impossible to spend that in your lifetime. No way you could spend that unless you spend some stupid roads and houses and things. By spending on day-to-day activities, it's impossible to spend that kind of money in your lifetime. That means you don't need it. So instead of that, these people who suddenly earn money, millions of dollars, they get bad habits. Gambling, particularly gambling at number 2, cause of death. And some people lost 30 million, 40 million in 2 years. They become debt suddenly. So this is the problem with this cycle of money as well, because you don't know what to do, you don't know how to handle it, and that's created negative vicious cycle of stress and lead to major problems. So money also cannot purchase happiness, no matter what people say, it's impossible, and there's no connection between the two. So what do we need to learn? So we need to have 2 kinds of education. Firstly, one that teaches us how to make a living, which you all are doing very successfully, that's what you are here, you make money, you're happy, that's it. And the one that teaches you how to live a healthy life. That most people are not doing well. That's where one thing you all can improve on the second part really. Because you have to have a balance between the first one and the second one, have peace and healthy life as we discussed. So, bottom line, we have to have a strategy for developing balanced life. Making money, how to utilize it, how to make peace within, in the family, at work, within colleagues, and how to make our contributions to the society, whether it's a family, at our work, or a school, best we can. We have obligation to do that as human beings. So we are privileged being a human being rather than a dog or a cat or somebody else. Whatever you have to people who doesn't have it, make their lives better. That makes you happy internally. So happiness comes automatically rather than you're pursuing for your happiness, which is impossible to do. We're going to end there with wishing you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wimalawansa, for the very useful and great seminar what we have had today, encouraging us to manage our stress, which leads to a happy and successful life. Ladies and gentlemen, you may have certain questions in your mind to get clarified from Dr. Wimalawansa, and this is the time for it. If you have any questions, you may raise your hand so I can come to you with the microphone.
Thank you very much for the fantastic presentation. The question I want, just came to my mind, when you describe about this adrenaline gland in our body. Now we had these fast moving high-speed roller coasters. They advertise and they say adrenaline runs at very high. Just this has some impact on our stress levels when we travel on those. It's a good thing or not?
That is a great question actually. The way to look at it is actually it's somewhat similar to our day-to-day life when you're at work, for example, or at school, because our stress level is never been very steady unless you are a meditative monk in the forest or something like that, or unless you develop your mind so higher levels, you don't get a stress into yourself, you just pass them away. So getting that kind of excitement and stress level with a freezing adrenaline and corticosteroid actually peaking up when you're jumping 100 feet down below or roller coaster, it certainly causes changes in your physiology and pharmacology, no question about it. But those are not sustainable. The key is to temporary stress versus sustaining stress. There's a major difference between the two, not even comparison. So there's no data to show that scientifically having that kind of stress, acute stress, short term, for good or bad reason, has a long-term negative effect. There could be physical problems, like somebody getting neck damage and all this osteoarthritis, people get hurt. But there's no data or there's research showing that it has a long-term bad effect. Except that there are small percentage of people, just like alcohol, smoking, drug, people get addicted to that kind of stress. So the kids go into parks on a regular basis, and the other thing is actually children particularly, teenagers getting used to violent electronic games. They are getting addicted to that. So that causes sustained stress and they really going to screw up their brains on a long-term basis. So you have to be careful getting occasional excitement versus very frequent excitement, just like getting used to drinking alcohol daily. And now you're 3 times a day you have a glass of whiskey. That means you're clearly addicted to that alcohol stimulate your brain to function to a certain level. So that's the difference. You have to think about it, and even for your children, if somebody's asking every day to go to, every weekend to go to the park, you have to think about, are we doing the right thing or something happening there and it's getting out of control?
Thank you, Doctor. Any other questions?
Doctor?
Yeah, go ahead.
I've recently read that people who are working abroad has a natural high stress level and they have an adrenaline flow, keep going into because they are in different environment, trying to settle down and facing challenges day by day. Is that a true statement?
Absolutely true. I can give a lot of scientific data to support what you're saying that let me give very briefly a couple of things. For that, the Japanese who went to Hawaii during World War II and later, and there are a lot of Japanese living in Hawaii, their heart rate was triple, heart attacks were triple compared to Japanese who live in Japan. So simply by moving to a new environment, new culture, new stress level, had made them to die 10 years earlier. Maybe better environment, but they kill themselves. Suicide rate was double. So that's one example. That's the second example I can give the Indians. There are a lot of studies in Sri Lanka government too little to. Indians who move from India to US, I'm talking the first generation people, their sickness rate was almost like 10 times, not twice, 10 times higher in US compared to back in their counterpart who did not move to US. And their heart rate was almost at 2.4% higher. Heart attacks and strokes were higher too. So something is changing for these people. Same population, same guy. If you age match male female to back in India, back in US where I live, New Jersey, huge Indian community. A lot of studies have been done to show the difference between the two. What is difficult to dotted line, connect the dotted line is this, what causes that? Is it due to the diet, change in environment, atmosphere, or the unmeasurable stressor? Stress is very difficult to measure and quantitative, right? So I personally believe that stress has tremendous effect, and there are people who disagree with me. In marriage, it's nice to disagree, but the problem with the stress is actually we cannot measure. There's no instrument or quantification to measure and say that you have a 10% stress or 30% stress. But people don't know if they are really stressed. I have tons of Indian patients. They're all stressed out. I don't know why. Maybe they can't know how to speak English, and they can go to anywhere. Whereas in India, they can go anywhere and they have their multiple language. They're very feel homely. When they put in the US culture, they are very strict. They don't know what to do. They cannot go out. They have no community. There's no social atmosphere. They're stuck at home, basically. So that made them to very much less activity, no exercise, eat bad food, junk food, and they become obese. It's a killer, because intravenous fat is the number one causes for heart attacks and strokes. So they're not deliberately doing that. They're doing that because nothing else they have to do. Stress situations, so they are caught in a negative vicious cycle. But we're talking about just like a stress, different form of stress. Okay, it's a social stress basically. Good question.
Thank you, Doctor.
In your presentation, you were talking about this word mindfulness. Now, as you all know, we are all in a working environment, and take an example in the morning when we are checking emails. While typing one email, we are thinking about 2-3 other things simultaneously. Now, this being mindful, is it exactly taking your subconscious mind out, or is it something else? What I'm trying to say is when you're engaged in certain activity, your subconscious mind is also working probably on something else. So being mindful is it taking the subconscious mind out?
Yes and no, because unless you are really experienced, we cannot suppress our subconscious mind. It's impossible to do that. Just think about counting to 10 or down 10 down to 1. Just do it now and see how many thoughts you get during that 10 seconds. So many. Very difficult to control your mind even for 10 seconds, never mind 1 hour. Unless you're exceptionally experienced. So when your example you gave, you're typing one email, thinking about how to respond to the one next coming in. Sure, that's part of multitasking. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But when I say mindfulness is a twofold. One is to be living in the present moment. You have to be aware of what you're doing. Even the email you're typing, you're not aware of what you're doing, you will be typing some garbage. Right? If you're not aware of what you're doing right now. Secondly, the more important part of the mindfulness is actually to avoid doing bad things, because that's where the spirituality and mindful come together. If you have a spiritual person, if you're mindful at the same time, chances of you're doing bad things near zero. Any bad thing, because those two goes together, right? But that's what our goal. We try to practice it that way. So that not only you're mindful, you're spiritual, therefore you are basically saying you do the right thing for right reason, and you take care of yourself, you take care of family, everybody's happy at the end of the day. But how many of us are doing that? So if you practice a little bit up there, and we can gradually develop all of us together. And imagine that in the world, everybody doing 10-minute meditation. There won't be any war. Anyway, there's no reason to have war. It doesn't happen. Now we think about it every 10 minutes. We think about how to kill somebody else. How to bomb that country, how to bomb this country, or how to make some weapons so that I can make billions. That's the problem. They are mindful on a different level because there is zero connection between the spirituality now. This is the important thing. We have to bring them together to be useful person for the community.